Well, this story is really heating up. The GOP is now pressing for a federal lawsuit that would challenge President Obama's use, and they would say overuse, of executive power. The new push comes one day after the president announced a series of new executive actions to bypass Congress to advance his policy agenda. Meanwhile, the Senate Judiciary Committee grilling Attorney General Eric Holder on the constitutional basis for President Obama's executive orders. Here's part of that exchange.
How about the executive order that he proposed last night with regard to minimum wage? Would that be Category 1, Category 2, or Category 3?
Well, again, without having delved into this to any great degree, that was...
But you're the Attorney General. I assume he consulted you.
Well, there have been consultations done with the Justice Department.
Interesting. Very interesting there. Utah Senator Mike Lee is a member of the Judiciary Committee, as you just saw. He was questioning the Attorney General there. Senator, welcome. Good to have you here today.
Thank you, Martha.
You know, you went through a number of instances where executive orders have been implemented, and you were pressing the Attorney General for what the process of determining whether or not they were constitutional is. What happened? Did they go through the Justice Department? Did they go through him? So after all of that, my question for you is, do you think that there is an evaluative constitutional process before these orders are put in place?
I would certainly hope that there is an evaluative process. I had assumed prior to yesterday that there had been one and that the Attorney General would have been involved in that. I was shocked to hear that perhaps that was not the case. But regardless, Martha, what we're concerned about here is the President issuing executive orders that have the effect of undoing existing statute, undoing existing law, without even the slightest explanation publicly as to what justifies the president in doing this. The president is not a law unto himself. If he wants to change the law, he has to go through Congress to do that. When he fails to do that, he owes us an explanation.
Let's take a look at the numbers, because you know what the response is to what you're saying. Look, all presidents do this. Look at the numbers. There you've got George W. Bush, 291 times he put through executive orders. President Clinton with a whopping 364 times. So they would look at those numbers and say, look, President Obama is well within his realm of the, execution of his executive powers as president.
Yeah, so I've got two responses to that. First, Martha, not all executive orders are bad. There are instances in which the law authorizes the president to act by executive order. Number two, it may well be the case, in fact, I'll concede for purposes of this discussion, it has been the case that presidents of both political parties have in the past abused power in their executive orders. But the fact that other presidents have done it doesn't justify it. Even still, what this president has done is unprecedented. What this president has done is to repeatedly change laws, even laws that he himself has pushed through Congress for his own political benefit under circumstances that he deems difficult, where he considers it inconvenient to go through Congress. And that's wrong. It's unconstitutional.
So perhaps folks at home say, so what are you going to do about it? This lawsuit that has been enacted, what does it mean, for people at home who have been hit, some of them, hard by Obamacare?
Yeah, so it's difficult to challenge a president because so much of the president's power is inherent in the office itself. But there are some things that can be done. In some cases, you can bring a lawsuit against a particular executive order. In other instances, Congress can withhold funding for the implementation of certain executive actions if Congress is in fact willing to do that. And in a broader sense, each time a president does this, he undermines his own negotiating power with Congress. He undermines his own support among the American people as they see that he's diminishing their rights and their prerogatives as citizens to live under a constitutionally limited government.
All right. I want to switch gears now and talk to you a little bit about immigration, because this is another issue that we're going to hear an awful lot about. And the sense is that there's a big divide on the Republican side in terms of what would be negotiable with Democrats if this is the one issue that everybody might be able to get together on. And I know Senator Sessions has just issued a 30-page rebuttal that the House Republicans are going to take with them on their retreat. He gave everybody a copy of it that basically says, here's why you should not offer any form of amnesty to the 11 million illegal immigrants in this country. Where do you stand on this?
Well, I haven't seen this 30-page report. I look forward to reading it. But I will say I've been consistent on this issue that in order to reform our immigration code, and I agree that we need to reform it, we need to undertake this in a step-by-step fashion. And the very first thing we need to do is to secure the border. And we also need to reform our antiquated, outdated visa system, our legal immigration processes. Once those things are done, once those things are in place and have been verified, then we'll be in a better position to figure out how best to treat the 11 million people who are here illegally with dignity and respect for the rule of law. But these things can't be all wrapped together. They can't all happen at once. And we need to undertake those first two steps first and complete them before we move on to the third.
So how much room is there for negotiation on this issue? Because this is the one thing that I think Americans look at and say, well, if they can't do this, if they can't get together and figure out something on this, maybe they can't do anything.
Yeah, I think compromise and negotiation are not only possible, I think they're imperative. And I think the best way to achieve that is to start with this step-by-step approach. Americans understand that we need to secure the border, and they understand that our legal immigration process is broken and that it's antiquated and that it needs to be updated and reformed. And we ought to start with those areas because those are the areas as to which there is the most broad-based bipartisan consensus. Let's start with those and get those things done, and then we can move toward consensus toward dealing with some of the other more vexing problems.
Okay, we'll see what comes out of this conference and how much both sides will see eye to eye on the Republican side on this. Thank you so much, Senator. Great to talk to you. Have a good day.
Thank you, Martha.